there. Okay, so we're a month into the invasion, the Ukrainian invasion. I've been meaning to comment on this. It's getting worse. We knew he was gonna. Well, no one really knew that. He's gonna invade Ukraine in the last few months. We saw that buildup there, and everyone was alarmed by the buildup. We knew something was up. I personally didn't think that he would go through with it, but as we're watching this, we can tell that he has been planning this for a while. So this is not something that he just woke up one day and said, "Well, let me just invade Ukraine." No, this is something that was in the making since he took over Crimea and the Donbass area and the separatist areas. So we knew this was coming. I just didn't realize that he would do it, just yet. I thought there would be a little while before he actually invaded the rest of Ukraine. I know he's been kind of gesturing a little bit, flexing his muscles. So I knew something was happening there. When you look at exactly how the buildup happened of all the troop movements, and when it went past, say, 120, 130,000 troops all in and around, all around Ukraine, once he passed 130,000, I knew something was going to happen. I just didn't know what. I didn't know if he was going to start shelling Ukraine from the border area. I really didn't think that he was going to invade just yet, because we're just coming out of COVID, and we're still kind of at the tail end of the pandemic here. So I really didn't think that this was going to happen just yet. But now that he has invaded Ukraine, he has basically moved into it, and he's shelling some of the cities we're looking at. Kherson, you're looking at Kharkiv, Lviv area, and then Mariupol. These are, especially Mariupol, when you look at it, he's slowly moving towards the port of Odessa. This is, once he takes over Odessa, it's basically all over for Ukraine at that point. They're pretty much cooked. He's not gonna walk away from this, because this is kind of a grand prize for him, for Putin. And when you look at how he planned this thing almost 13 years ago, when he took over Crimea, right then I was kind of screaming and saying, look, this is not a good sign that he came and just took over Crimea. This is basically a pretext for a full all-out invasion. I said that back in 2013 when he took Crimea. I think it was 2012, 2013, right around that area. Sochi elections were just about done, and then he did it right. The Olympics, not elections, but Olympics were just about done, and he actually invaded during the Sochi Olympics. And anyways, fast forward, he's here. He had roughly around 150,000 troops, close to 190 by some estimates. I think they're pretty accurate when they say that. He has run into some blunders there, but some of you remember this long convoy that was just sitting there, waiting to come into basically Kiev. And then he slowly starts sending his troops in there. That was not a mistake. That was deliberate. I know what he was doing there. He was basically sending in few troops at a time. This is something they do militarily. I mean, this is not some big secret. He was sending in a few troops to kind of just look at test the water, to so to speak, to see what the defenses were like. And anyone that's studied any kind of military tactics, they know that if he wasn't going to bomb, precision bomb, like how we did shock and awe in Baghdad during the Second Gulf War, with the shock and awe was basically precision bombing. I don't think that he wanted to do precision bombing. I don't personally feel he wanted to do the shock and awe thing. I didn't think he would, and he didn't. I don't know why I didn't. I just didn't feel like he would do the shock and awe thing because he wanted to take Kiev in kind of a one big piece there, even though he's grinding to the rest of the Ukraine. When you look at what he's doing with Mariupol, he's completely surrounded it and he's pounding the hell out of it. So, and he's going to grind all the way through Ukraine. This is done now. It's cooked. Ukraine is cooked. It's not going to go back to what it was before, and he's not going to give it up at any cost. Putin is not going to give this up because to him, this is a grand price against a move against NATO. And for him to just back out of this would, my opinion, be pretty stupid and naive. I don't think he would do that. So he's already in there. He's trying to surround Kiev from all sides. Now he's slowly going to move within the next couple of weeks. I think he'll be in Odessa. The port of Odessa, it's a port city, is southern part of Ukraine. And a lot of the supplies and all the provisions that come into and go out of Ukraine, go out of Odessa. It's a pretty prime target for him. And it's a matter of a couple of weeks before he moves into Odessa. But Ukraine, in my opinion, is cooked. It's done. There is no going back from this. You may have heard some of the parliamentary members in Ukraine were saying, well, are you people in the West being naive? Third World War has already started. And, if you think that this is something that Putin is going to stop his movement against NATO, they would be pretty naive if someone were to think that. So, and they're right. They are right. There is a world war constitutes 20 nations or more, correct? So now when you're looking at just the NATO side, you have 30 nations there. And then if you start looking at the Russian column, you got China, you got North Korea, you got India, you got Pakistan, you got Iran, Syria, a 6 right there. Now, if you start calculating some other nations that are around, I missed Belarus there. Belarus already made it very clear that they're a Russian asset there. So it's part of Russia. That's just the way he made it look. Because the invasion, parts of the invasion into Kiev happened from Belarus. So that's a no-brainer there. So Belarus is also in. So you look at 7, 8 nations there. But when you calculate, when you look at what a world war looks like, right? A world war constitutes 20 nations or more. Right now, we're already into 28 or 29 nations there. So that to me is a world war like, and they're correct in saying that. So those who are screaming, and if you notice the mass media like CNN, MSNBC, all these guys, they are bringing out that they are injecting that into the whole mix of invasion and saying, well, Biden is making sure that we don't start, Russians and Americans don't start shooting at each other because that's going to be a World War III. Whenever someone mentions that a specific thing, there's some reality to it. Otherwise, they wouldn't be injecting that. President of the United States mentioning World War III is by no accident. There is something greater than what this Ukrainian invasion is. And I can from my estimate, from my own estimate, my own independent research, I've been researching this area for a very long time. Okay, just as I researched the Middle East area, I'm more of a Middle East and South Asian expert. But then I studied Russia right after he took over Crimea, and started to look into what his movement would be against NATO. Right. So right now, this is the very first move against NATO, and he's not going to stop there. We know that. Anyone that has any kind of research on Putin, we know he's not going to stop at Ukraine, because that just wouldn't make any sense. Now, why did he start there, and why is he pounding the hell out of it and basically grinding the cities the way he is? Because it's a very, it's not just a tactical thing. This is a very strategic thing that he's doing. He realized that the Ukrainians, right, did not want to be did not want to be a part of Russia, or they did not want to have Russian influence there. They had applied for the European Union. They have been wanting to go towards the European Union. NATO membership was next. So the EU membership, naturally, when he saw that the first, second, third attempt since Ukraine got its independence was towards Europe, he knew that he had to at some point take this place over, because that meant NATO is right at the doorstep there. And it's going to make it very difficult for him to maneuver, because we could be listening and watching everything he's doing from Ukraine. If Ukraine had joined NATO. So him moving into, people will say, well, what's so big about Ukraine? Well, Ukraine has a lot of natural resources. When you look at it, it is extremely rich in natural gas, has a lot of lithium, a ton of titanium, and it has a lot of other natural resources there. Not much oil, but a lot of natural gas. There's a ton of natural gas underneath Ukraine. So it's not by accident he's saying, well, let me just take this place over. He's been eyeballing Ukraine for a very, very long time, because ever since he came in and he started to display some of his ambitions of those nostalgic ambitions of trying to get that old Soviet-like empire back, even though he hated the old Soviet hardliners and the whole Soviet empire, because he felt like they betrayed that whole nation there, all these guys that were running the old Soviet Union. So he didn't like what they did, so he wanted to bring his own style of rule or dictatorship. I guess you could call it Putinism. So Putinism was something that he is trying to create. And yes, people saying he's the next, he's like the Tsar of Russia. Yeah, it is true, because when you look at it from that point of view, he has an authoritarian rule there. There is really no one that can challenge him. And everything that he has set up since the very beginning, it's been basically gearing up for a new Soviet-style empire that philosophically was a lot different from the Soviets, because he didn't like the way they collapsed and how they operated. So he has his own ideas there about how he would move into this new kind of empire within the next century. So it's no accident that came into Ukraine. Ukraine has a ton of natural resources. Let's not forget that part of it. So the fact that he's leveling out Ukraine, it's pretty obvious that he does not want too many people living in certain areas. Why bomb all these apartment buildings? They're basically empty when they're doing it. Very few people in there. He's making sure that he delivers whatever message he can to these apartment complexes, these high-rises, to make sure everyone is out of there, and then he bombs them at that point. I'm not like I'm looking at exactly what kind of carnage there is after he bombs. There's really no one in there. It's empty buildings. So it's obvious that he's looking to move people out of Ukraine, push them right into Europe, which is where they wanted to be. He realized that Ukrainians, by a mass majority, do not want to be a part of Russia. They would like to be a part of Ukraine. So this is something he looked at and he said, well, they want to be in Ukraine. Let me push them into into Europe. So that's where they would like to be. Because if you look at how they elected Zelensky, he is a comedian, and he basically came in as a popular vote there, by popular vote, and he took over as president. And but all this record of them wanting to be with the EU, Ukrainians, gave him real concern that if he didn't move into NATO, it would be a pretty difficult scenario for him. Because remember, in some of the interviews, he was saying, well, you have NATO pointing missiles in our direction. So he clearly sees NATO as a threat towards his, not towards his sovereignty of Russia, but specifically towards him. And he has his ambitions to grow Russia into an empire, and possibly something different than what it used to be. Okay, so Ukraine is basically done. It's taken over. It's just a matter of time, regardless of what the media says or what anyone says. My opinion, when I looked at what he's doing and how he's moving in there, once he gets Odessa and cuts off all the supply from the Black Sea, Ukraine is finished. It's done. There is no going back to it. I think anyone that with a little bit of brain can understand that this is done. And it's basically a matter of time before Zelensky would have to capitulate. So let's look at the next scenario and what I feel that Putin might do after he is done taking over Ukraine. We know he's not going to stop there. Everyone knows that. Even if you look at if you listen to the military, all the analysts, everyone is saying that. Even Biden said that. Joe Biden said, well, he's not going to stop at Ukraine. We know this. So this is common knowledge within the circuit that studies geopolitics, and those of us who are studying Ukraine and Russia and all these, especially Putin and how he came about and what he's doing now. So let's, my opinion is he really is not going to stop there. Now, the next nation that he would target would not be Moldova. Most people think, well, he's going to try to move into Moldova. It's a smaller country because he already has Belarus up there. Finland is too far up there, up north, and he is somewhat friendly to the Finnish president, and they have been in communication very long time. I don't personally think that he's going to go into Finland, and I don't think he'll go into Moldova either. The next move, and the next very move that I feel Vladimir Putin is going to move into is towards Uzbekistan. And why do I say that? Uzbekistan, when you look at the Central Asia and how Uzbekistan is located, some of you might remember Uzbekistan was home to around 1,400 nuclear weapons 1,400 nuclear missiles, nuclear warheads that were placed strategically in Uzbekistan. So, and they were taken out of there, of course, after the Soviet Union collapsed. So, when you look at, when you look at the geographic location of Uzbekistan, that to me gives me pause when I look at that. It gives me concern that I strongly feel that Vladimir Putin is going to move towards Uzbekistan next because, once again, the natural resources. You have a ton of natural gas there, and lots of lithium, lots of titanium. There is a lot of other natural resources that Uzbekistan has, and he already has. There was a Russian billionaire in Uzbekistan that was kind of in charge of all their natural resources and things like that. I'm not placing his name at the moment, but I'll try to bring it up at the next video. But this is what I feel that his move would be next. He'll move into Uzbekistan. This is what I feel that he's going to do. It's just my personal analysis, my own independent research, my own independent thinking that's kind of leading me to that this is where he's moving next. So that's something Moldova is not something that he is concerned with right now. Once he's taken over Ukraine, I think he would pause for a little bit and try to contain Ukraine, because once he has taken over Ukraine completely, he still has to deal with the asymmetric warfare. The insurgency is going to start to give him a really hard time, especially when they're being supplied by the West, by NATO. And he knows that. So he's going to gear up for that. And being that Putin is extremely brutal, he is not like how we dealt with Iraq when we went in there. And, when you remember Fallujah and all these places where we had insurgency, we were still pretty humane. We were still trying to conduct ourselves in a way where we were not just carpet bombing everything there. We were pretty orderly in how we were dealing with the insurgency there, because that is just the way we wanted to do that, because we know we didn't want too much collateral damage. The Russians are not concerned with collateral damage. He doesn't even care about that word. This is something that came out of the first Persian Gulf War, collateral damage. I don't think he even cares about that. He's going to simply bomb the hell out of Ukraine, and he's going to look at insurgency as just any other maneuver and that he needs to squash. So he's going to be merciless when it comes to the Ukrainian insurgency. Unfortunately, I feel very bad for the Ukrainians. They would have to deal with that next. So next, going back to my earlier point about where he moves next, he does not go into Moldova. I was looking at that. I thought he might go into Moldova. I don't believe now that I don't feel that that's where he's going to go. He's probably going to take pause, deal with the insurgency for as long as he can. Once he feels like he has his control over the entire Ukrainian situation, if it doesn't actually spill into some other parts of NATO and we're all out a third world war, which is what a lot of strategists are predicting, that this is going to turn into a third world war like situation. This is just a trigger. Ukraine was just a trigger. I tend to agree with them in some ways. I do. And I looked at that situation. I said, yeah, well, when you look at what a world war is, we're already in it. So it has already begun. And those who are saying that are not entirely wrong. So, but I'll get into the next video more what I think about where he's gonna go. But insurgency is something he's gonna deal with, and I feel very bad for the Ukrainians. He is not like us. He's not like the Americans. He is gonna be pretty brutal when it comes to the asymmetric warfare that he would have to deal with. So that said, I think I'll leave it there, and I'll try to comment periodically on the Ukrainian situation, because there's a lot of moving parts to it now, and I just need to kind of break it down into small pieces where I can actually deliver in, say, 20 minutes, half an hour at a time. So thank you for watching. I'll keep an eye on my next video, and I'll see you again. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.